Hey, I'm Di Gillett, and this is the Power of Women podcast. We're a platform that showcases and celebrates the strength, resilience, and achievement of women from all walks of life. In each episode, I pose questions to my guests to peel away the layers to reveal the knowledge and experience that shapes their narrative. So if you are feeling unseen, unheard, or simply looking for inspiration, then the Power of Women podcast is a great place to join the conversation. Today's episode is where my corporate career as a headhunter and my latest venture as the podcast host for the Power of Women intersects. So let me give you some context. You know, in life, when you meet someone who really lights a fuse in your consciousness, that individual, whilst at the very beginning of their career, displays all the attributes of successful character traits of a go-getter. Well, that is today's guest. I first met her in 1996 when I was just embarking on my executive search career in a company where I had broken the mold and defied the corporate guidelines that stated women did not wear pantsuits. What utter bullshit. I walked into a meeting room and was greeted with a 20-something-year-old with a smile as wide as the Sydney Harbour Bridge with absolutely no marketing experience. But I was actually recruiting for a marketing executive. And 5 minutes into the interview, I said, "You will be perfect." Convincing the client, however, took a little bit longer, but we got there and a marketing career was launched. Fast forward 30 years, a fabulous career under her belt, and we are here to discuss a transition from corporate to canvas. Joining me is the inimitable Anna Lohe. Let's start the podcast. Anna,
Hello.
hey, how are you?
Really well. Thank you for that very generous introduction.
Well, some of it's generous and some of it's just reality, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. It's so good to be chatting in this new, as you say, chapter. It's great.
Exactly right. And I remember when I decided that I was going to put you forward for a particular marketing role. I'm not sure the client was that thrilled. Do you remember what I had to do?
Yes, I do. And from that minute, I remember you always had my back. So I'm very grateful. I remember you saying, well, if you don't hire her, I'm going to withdraw my services from this opportunity. So I think it was, good old arm wrestling done Di Gillett style, but it worked. So
That sounds
thanks.
about right. That sounds pretty normal. There we go. Hey, Anna, I'm
Very
going to
good.
start with my typical opening Power of Women podcast questions, if I may. Where did you grow up?
Grew up in Melbourne and obviously where we met as well, now living in Sydney. And I grew up in the outer eastern suburbs in a lovely area called Ringwood North. So it was very bushy and I was really lucky to go to a great school out there. And my childhood was kind of a mixture of a little bit suburban, a little bit country, because my real father had a farm out in the Yarra Valley. So every second weekend, my sister and I would go out there and, run
Hmm.
around, chase some sheep and do all that kind of stuff.
We have that in
Uh,
common.
we do. And so, yeah, childhood, I think I was really lucky. We lived a really happy life riding our motorbikes around, and I worked at my parents' service station that was up in South Warrandyte, which definitely taught me the small business mantras. I think that's, infused me for what lay ahead.
There you have it. And what were the most powerful learnings from your childhood?
I definitely think this kind of small business work ethic, I would, at university, I would get home and I'd have an hour's sleep from night clubbing, and then I'd be on the console at my parents' service station saying, "Hi, is that, petrol on pump four," kind of thing, and absolutely beside myself. But I knew I had to do it because I had to, you know, hold my own and keep my promise to my family that I would do the Saturday and Sunday shift up there. So that I think was big. And then mum always, she was such an inspiration. She did a pivot herself. She went from being a teacher to being a full-time mum. And then at the age of 60, she decided to open a florist. So she,
Wow.
it was just fantastic inspiration for me. And
Yeah.
she's always a big one for love each other, just love each other. And I think it's a great thing.
Great role model. Great role
She
model.
is. She definitely
So,
is.
Anna, there's always a story. How did this transition from corporate career to an artist studio come about? Because it's quite significantly different.
It is. And that's a story I still have to almost say out loud for me to believe it because it was always part of my career. So, as you say, I went from being the marketing manager of a national retailer, which you kindly sorted me out with, into 12 years of working in ad agencies in Melbourne, Sydney, and then London, working on global accounts, had an absolute ball. It was really fantastic, really mind expanding, and met some sensational people. And then when I came back to Australia, I chose to reset up in Sydney. And I did a little bit more ad agency time, but then I was asked to join Woolworths as their head of brand communication. And this was a job that, I had a team of over 40, budget. It's not this now, but it used to be over $150 million worth of spend. There was a lot going on, 16-hour days, et cetera, et cetera. And I loved it. I put together the partnership with Jamie Oliver and got to relaunch the fresh food people in a modern way. So it was great, ticked
Yeah,
all my
fantastic.
corporate aspiration shoulder pad boxes.
Shoulder
Had
pad boxes. You're showing your age, Anna.
darling. Yeah, I had quite a few throats. It wasn't quite good. Anyway, then of course, I became a mum, married Simon, and had two kids. And the whole corporate vibe wasn't going to work. I did pick up a series of consulting roles, though, where I was chief marketing officer for several brands, and that lasted about 5 or so years. And then on the last one, where I was chief marketing officer for a company that had 11 brands, 4 of which were Indigenous. It was completely complicated. And I said to Simon at the end, I just need to go and do yoga for 3 days, talk to nobody, and I need
Mm.
to just go hit a massive reset button.
Was that a
And on the
burnout?
way, oh, yeah, I just couldn't really even think. So I think if that's what you would call burnout, I was
Mm.
fried, like no capacity. And, we women, we have that multitasking gene. And I think
Yeah.
that had busted somehow. I just
And a
literally,
lot of women with young families would relate to this.
oh yeah, I just needed a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
So I went out to this wonderful yoga retreat that's only an hour and a half out of Sydney. It's called Billabong, and it's I'd been recommended it by a few people. And on the way out, I didn't stop at Woolworths. I stopped at Aldi to buy a banana. And instead of buying bananas, I walked out with a painting kit that they sell in the middle aisle there. And because I'd forgotten a book and I desperately needed to, do something whilst not not doing the yoga. So I got out there and in front of me was the most glorious bush setting with this beautiful billabong. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm just going to give it a go. So I had this really quite dodgy selection of paint colors and an A3, paper pad. And it probably took me about the 2.5 days to really, finish it and get because it was just an experiment going, I suppose. But I showed a few people that were out there and they're like, what do you mean you've just whizzed that up? And I'm like, well, yeah, I just, thought I'd
Was
paint the
this
billabong.
talent in you? Did you know that you had this talent?
No, no. So at school, school was definitely a great fine arts school. And I, would try my best, but I definitely wasn't part of the gold medal lineup that the other girls were able to achieve. But I did always love color. And, I traveled in my 30s for a whole year, and I could have done whatever, but I actually ended up filling up myself with every museum and every art gallery I could find. So I've always definitely had a passion for art, but the ability to know that I could actually conceive something and have it then flow out of my hand,
Mm.
that's the bit I just didn't have any appreciation of. But remembering this wasn't me trying to deliberately become an artist.
An
I was just
artist. Mm.
literally
This was
having
organic.
a play, and I posted that painting on social media just to say, hey, I have been away for 3 days. And then two very beautiful friends of mine said, oh my God, but can you please create one for us? I'm like, okay. And then one of those friends, once I'd finished those commissions, then dobbed me in to do an art exhibition. And I'm like, oh,
That's a big job.
and when is this art exhibition? Oh, it's in 2 months. And I'm like, oh, okay, nothing like a deadline mantra of old coming through. So I painted 14 paintings in the 2 months, and it was
Amazing. Amazing.
insane. Some big, some small. I had to cheat with the smaller ones. Actually borrowed the paintings that I'd already painted from my friends and put sold stickers on them so that it looked like I'd painted a few
Always
more.
the commercial mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the exhibition sold out. And it was
Wow.
just one of those,
Where
I'm not,
was it? Where'd you hold
it
the
was at
exhibition?
a beautiful place called the Studio in Carril Bay, and it's hosted by these local guys, Amy Young and Matt Young. And
Mm.
they had a gap in their calendar, and they asked me to, if I could fill it. So hence the tight deadline. But what was very, very memorable on that night is I remember finding my husband Simon in the crowd. He was the one that had always said to me over the years, he's like, you and this marketing business, can't we just go overseas and find a product and import it and then retire, And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Anyway, this night I said to him, I think we've just found our product.
It's me. You're living with it. You're
Here
looking
we
at
go. He's like,
it.
oh, it's a nice hobby, darling. And I remember saying to myself, I'll prove you wrong, hobby.
Yeah, that'd be right. Yeah, that'd go through your head. So let's unpack that tipping point, because I know many of us get to a stage where we think there must be more, and we've got a burning desire to explore a passion. But actually exploring a passion, I mean, there's a lot of self-belief and inner confidence that it is required to do something like this. So what was going through your mind? Were you thinking, really, I could make a career out of this? Or were Simon's words ringing in your ear of, great, great hobby, darling?
The great hobby, darling, almost was like one of those fight or flight reflex moments. And it really did put a bit of fire in the belly. But it was actually, when you do yoga, or, you go speak to a therapist or whatever, and they talk about finding your flow, what happened is that things just started to flow. And I just had this series of green lights and opportunities appear without effort.
Mm.
And so it wasn't this amazing orchestrated plan that I was executing. I had wonderful friends that offered me a art space in Bondi straight away
A
after this
studio
first.
to work from.
No, it was actually another exhibition.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and it was
Okay.
only a matter of months later. And that enabled me to reignite my old network from being back in Bondi, where I used to live. And that was fantastic. Then I had another friend that offered me a space as a gallery studio, which that just was like, well, that's very kind, no problem. That doubled up as we were co-working in a
But
way,
these
because
people clearly believed in you. They'd seen a glimpse of your work and knew there was a talent to be explored.
yes, and I think just rewinding a second in the story, what blew me away on this exhibition night, the first one that sold out, it wasn't my mates or my mum buying the paintings. It was strangers.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's really why I could say to Simon, I think we've found a something.
Yeah, because it was
Um,
valid. It was validation. It wasn't people just being kind.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And so I then had a phenomenal opportunity just fall out of the sky, which was from a friend who opens resorts around the world. And
You got a
she
good network, Anna.
comes in handy sometimes, yes.
Mm.
But it also, just jumping off for a second, I think there is something in universal credits, if I may,
Mm.
because I've always adored connecting people. It's kind of like you.
It's your
It's
thing.
almost my favorite currency of, if people are saying, I'm looking for a job and I'm thinking about this, then I go, there's someone that kind of does that. And then I'll do an introduction. And then if turns out that they get the job, I'm like the happiest person ever. And it's not a
Mm.
monetary thing at all. It's actually just I really love doing that and helping
Yeah.
people.
You just
And I
happen to be
think,
a decent human being.
thank you. My mother would be happy to hear that. But I think in a way, the universe was kind of repaying me a little bit,
Mm.
because then when this big moment happened, which was to put the art in a brand new resort in the Maldives for 160 villas, it was just like, can do it, because I'd partnered up with this
Sorry,
wonderful.
100 and so we're talking 160 pieces of art.
We're talking actually one commission. And then what I've learned in this art business is that you can create reproduction prints on
Got
canvas
it.
or paper that are then much more affordable, particularly in a commercial context like this. And so I painted one commission that was completely tailored for the property, with the specific palm trees and birds and sea life and all the stuff that was specific to this particular Maldives island. And then she then chose other artworks from my existing library of work. And then with my printing partner, who ships stuff for me all around the world now, they then delivered it to this tiny island in the Maldives. And then they put it all up in the
Have you
rooms.
been and
And
seen it? Have you been there?
no, I'm going in a month and I can't
Oh,
wait.
wow.
Yeah, I'm doing a masterclass there with their guests. It's going to be crazy.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be great. Can't wait.
I was going to I'm actually going to come back to it. I was going to talk about the commercialization of this. We'll come back
Yeah,
to it, but
sure.
golly, it's come early. So yeah. So what was the scariest thing about stepping away from what you knew, what you were established and had credentials in, to this new unknown world of art, or
Well,
lesser known world of art?
yeah, I'd say crudely money, because I was obviously making a pretty, significant salary with my consulting and my, jobs
Mm,
before that. But because I'd surrendered into that, I felt like I'd ticked all those corporate boxes. I didn't have any more kind of aspiration around what would I do next, other than probably a board role. I was starting to think, or board roles I was thinking about. Also in the reality of mum life juggle, because my kids are still only 9 and 6.
mm,
So I had to really recalibrate my head around, okay, how I mean, obviously I'm fortunate to be with my husband, and he was a massive supporter. And I do definitely acknowledge, women that may be single, that may have the idea but may not have the second income in their house.
mm.
That's not always going to be, and
Possible.
I can imagine them eye rolling, going, yeah, good on you, winner. There's no, no way I can do that right now. But
Mm,
it's that was, obviously one reality. But I think the greatest challenge was being team of one. And team of
mm.
one means no one to ask could you kindly deliver this by Friday kind of
And you'd
scenario.
never been a team of one. You'd always had a a company or corporate team of some sort around you.
and all the infrastructure, the IT
Mm.
help
When
desks.
IT goes wrong, exactly.
Yeah,
That's the one
I
I
love
find.
that.
Yeah, jack of all trades is a
Yeah,
really big hat. I know that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Mm.
that's been a challenge, but almost in a way the most satisfying because Google
Mm.
is actually quite helpful if you ask the right question.
Well, it is. It is. There's a YouTube video for everything, even how to fix a wobbly toilet seat. I know that.
Well done. Yeah, so how to create a Shopify site, how to create a YouTube channel, how to make better reels on your Instagram, blah blah
Mm.
blah 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 blah, all of it. How to get the right file size
I
to
need that reel,
the
Anna. How to make better reels on Instagram. We'll take that one offline.
yeah, no worries. Um, I have actually got news though, Di. I've hired
Yeah.
my first teammate this week.
So team of two.
Team of
And
two.
what's the function?
So she is a total social media guru. She's actually a trained graphic designer. But what I was observing in my weeks that the social media was just being an absolute thief, and
Isn't
I
it?
couldn't.
It's extraordinary.
Oh,
I'm right up against the glass on that one myself.
yeah. And so she's faster, better
Mm.
than me doing it, and it's
We
like,
do need to take this conversation offline.
yes, you can't have her. She's mine.
Oh, you don't
Um,
share. Oh.
I might. Um, and so that instantly is a game changer because then I can focus on getting a semblance of momentum, continuously going because I've always got to be painting new things. I need to be
Mm.
thinking about what's the next kind of horizon, la
You
la
kind of got
la.
two little people in your world to look after. You've got a
Yeah,
marriage to keep
exactly.
rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah. It's a
exactly.
lot.
Yeah, so
It's
I
a
think
lot.
that's a long way of answering your question, but
Mm.
it's been a wonderful learning curve. If
Mm.
you sometimes you can be overwhelmed by it, and there's definitely days I'm like, meh. But
But you're resourceful. So it's what you don't know, you know who to ask, or you're resourceful enough to find out.
yeah, and then the stuff you don't know. Well, that's just ignorant bliss.
Until somebody holds up that light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So did you have a plan B if this didn't work?
Uh,
Or did you
not
have the
really.
faith? So two parts to that.
Mm.
Did you have a plan B that didn't work? And if you didn't have one, which I think you're about to tell me you didn't, is it because you had the faith in what you were doing that this was going to be a success?
I just told myself I'm going to give it a red hot shot for 12 months.
Yep.
And if, say, hypothetically, to your question, if I had have bummed out at the 12-month mark, well, then I probably would have already been thinking in parallel of what that plan B could have been. And it would have been some sort of version of consulting or a non-executive board role or something like that, I think.
Mm.
Um, but
Reluctantly or
oh, I don't like the idea that I would have failed, I suppose. But I'm also very good at re-scripting the narrative in my head. Oh, well, if it wasn't meant to be, well, then this must meant to be. So I
yeah.
suppose it's just a question of, your psychology around it more
Mm.
than what would have been. It would have been, I think more effort would have been just in spending time rewiring my mind rather than finding something else.
And
But
you
I'm
must have
happy to
had to
say I didn't
rewire
have
your
to.
wardrobe too, Anna, because I'm assuming you've left behind a whole lot of corporate wear to a
Yes.
world of very
Yeah.
casual, paint resistant wardrobe.
Correct. I have gone into the double denim world quite
Double
happily.
denim.
and it brings me great joy. Actually, my friend the other day when I was in Melbourne opening my art exhibition down there, she was trying to tell me I need to up my game a bit for, the fashion capital of Australia, Melbourne. And so
You weren't wearing black.
no. Did
Yeah.
I? No, I didn't. I had a black
Mm,
skirt on in the end, actually. But
mm.
anyway, she was very generous with her time, and he passed me this blazer, oversized kind of vibe. Just put it on. And I put it on, and I literally had like some sort of PTSD reaction. I'm like, I can't do it. Get it off.
So, oh
Would not
God.
do it.
Oh dear,
Yeah.
it's a flashback.
Yeah.
So, what does a working week look like for you now?
They vary. I am actually trying, and you know this as well, when you listen to all the various ecom podcasts that are around there, they do very much encourage you to have a structure. So I am trying to stick to Mondays is social media, which is when I have my new wingman working with me. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, I kind of intersperse. I will try and do my monthly newsletter to my subscribers, because those guys are amazing, and I like to try and put a pretty good effort into that to give them something new. They're the
Mm,
first people to see it. Then I have kind of a book of ideas and just brain farts that have come along the way that I need to. I've just lost my ear thing for a second. Hang on.
your earpiece.
Yep.
You've got a tech
Um,
glitch and there's no IT person on site.
and then we're back online. It's okay. And too much hand gesturing, I think. So yeah, so then I try and follow up some of those ideas, or at the minute I'm actually working on two new exhibitions. One's in Ibiza and the other one's
Oh,
in
good heavens.
California.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, it's going to be unreal. I can't wait. And then if I get all that done, then I treat myself on a Friday to do some painting.
Oh, wow.
It's like
Wow.
dessert at the end of the week.
There you go. Brilliant. Well, coming up next, we're going to talk about your art aesthetic and the commercial qualities that you've brought to your art. So, Anna, I know this is more than just a hobby, but before we get to that, can you tell us a little bit about what your art aesthetic actually is? I can see some of it behind you on the wall.
Yeah. Actually, this is I kind of sat here today for a reason. This painting is called Numero Uno, and that is
Numero
because
uno.
Numero
It
Uno.
was numero uno.
It was my very first canvas that I did. So the dodgy
Wow.
bit of paper at the Billabong.
This
I
is a
then
piece, this
came.
is an LD piece of paper sitting on the wall behind us, yeah?
It is not. It is actually a painting that I could have sold at least about 8 times, the original of it. I've sold, it's also called Numero Uno by chance, because it's become my number one selling print, actually.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was my very first painting, and I've kind of kept it as my talisman, lucky charm thing. Also because my kids painted some of the flowers at the bottom of it.
No, there you go.
But my style, I suppose you would call it, in a broad, excuse the pun, brushstrokes way, is abstract expressionist art, in that it's not completely abstract. You can actually see some figurative things in it. So I'm not sure what you can see here at the minute, but
Yeah,
there's
no, I
an
can. I can pick out
owl
and
and
gum nuts. I can pick out
yeah, and
specifics.
little boats and bits and
Yeah.
bobs. If I lean out for a second. But my inspiration is very much botanical. And I think this
Mm,
comes from mum's, adoration of all things flowers and plants, and, really asking us as children to really look at nature, look at the details, look at the details. So I've always
mm.
been able to see things in that regard. And so my first collections were actually called Succulent Society.
Yeah.
And that's because I've got heaps of succulents in my garden. I took lots of cuttings when I had my first baby and had scissors in the pram, and I'd go around and take little things. And now they're all planted in my garden.
Oh, you
Um,
mean take little things from other people's gardens?
yeah, at the front, not in their garden. And I'm happy to play that forward though. If people want to
There
come
we
with their
go.
scissors in my garden, no problemo.
Excellent.
Um, and and of course I love travel and I love spirituality through yoga. So I will put things in there like dream catchers, or I have some paintings that are more Mediterranean in feel, and they'll have like kind of white architectural archways in it and things like that. But my
Mm.
style is very much about being vibrant and colorful. But I mean, it's like when
That's
you're
your
little,
personality. So your art is truly an expression of who you are.
and it's really funny. My lovely, I suppose you call him my guru therapist, when I got back from London, I was shockingly single and it was all really mad. Don't know what I'm doing in my life. Um, when I first showed him, I went, just put a message and went, surprise, guess what I'm doing now? And a link to my website. And he goes, oh my God, it's you on a painting.
There you go. Oh, that's impactful.
So that was
Yeah,
funny.
that's
But
yeah. Well, it's
with
funny,
color
but there's
though,
actually a lot in that.
yeah, it was really touching actually.
Yeah.
But like when you're little and you are, painting at kinder, and if you mix all the colors together, you just get brown.
Mm.
So the key is actually I try to keep to about 5 or 6 colors. So whilst it's really vibrant, I try and keep the tones, whether I'm doing a blue one like this or a more neutral or a more peachy kind of one or whatever,
So
that
it
the
is still
tone is
your
all staying.
personality as your guru identified because it's got discipline. So you are, if I was to describe you, you're vibrant, you're exuberant, but you're extremely focused and disciplined, and that is what your art is,
Oh, thank you. That's really gorgeous of
in
you to
my
say
opinion.
that. Well, I rate your
Right.
opinion. And then it's about 5 or 6 layers. So I'll do a quite wild first layer, which will be just big splash, go for it, whatever colors, blocks of color. And then sometimes I'll almost play, like when you look in the sky and you're like, could that cloud be an elephant, or could that be the, and I'll try and, just go from what the wild base layer's been. And then I'll start adding elements in, and then get right down into the finer details with now that I have grown up brushes, not my Aldi brushes.
Thank God.
Yeah. You'd think I'd be better at doing makeup, but I'm not.
Oh, well, there you go. You prefer painting on something
Yeah.
else other than yourself.
Yeah.
So,
So that's my style, I think, in a
yeah,
way. It's kind of
in a
like,
nutshell.
botanical landscape
Mm.
abstract
It's really
vibes.
beautiful. It's really
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And you have commercialized this incredibly quickly, Anna. Tell me about the commercial im applications that you've already taken your art to.
Sure. Well, courtesy of Instagram, where there are a lot of fellow, very, very clever artists, both Australian and overseas, I suppose I did my research
Mm.
and looked and went down the various rabbit holes of how people were definitely not living to the stereotype of struggling artist. They were clearly doing really well. And, some would even be as generous to say, in their yearly wrap ups, I've sold this many originals, this many prints, this many this,
So
and yeah.
this was
And
desktop research, or you actually
yeah,
reached out to them?
both actually. So I began desktop, and then I actually reached out to them and asked them, quick Q&A kind of thing,
Mm.
and very, very generous. And I'm always grateful for that, and hope to play that
Pay
forward
that
as well
forward.
myself. So once I particularly got hold of a wonderful company down in Mornington Peninsula, actually, called Southern Boy. They are a wonderful organization that produce all the prints on fine art, giclée standard paper that's, archival grade. They do it also on canvas. They are framers, and they also then ship it anywhere in the world for you. And that was the absolute game changer, sending them a random email. it was also that I had that crazy deadline of the first exhibition. So it was kind of like,
Mm.
because I
And
knew
you've
that.
got your commercial business disciplines that you're drawing on as you're building this from your previous world.
Exactly. And I think what's happened in a way is that I've found a thing that actually has ignited both my left and right brains,
Mm.
which I felt I always had a bit more right brain capacity rather than just always, the strategy and more
This is a
business
dance
side of
I
things.
personally relate to very deeply. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, and it's an area that interests me to kind of find out a bit more about that actually. But I I knew I needed to get a website up, and I found a Shopify coach also in Geelong. There's a lot of Melbourne themes going on here, actually.
Mm.
And then, and she's fantastic. And we quickly put together a Shopify site. Again, her being my coach to teach me so that I wasn't this just like, I didn't have the cash to pay for a site that quickly anyway. So I knew I needed to learn the basics, and Shopify is a global,
Commercial platform.
thing
Mm.
for a reason. It's incredibly easy. It's very flexible, and it gives you everything you kind of need in terms of setting up all your products and the product SKUs, etc. Um, and then what happened after that? So then I was in my local bookshop, and Sally, who runs that, says, I think your art would work really beautifully on greeting cards that we sell. And we work with this
Mm.
local company that produce it on sustainable paper. And I sent my submission in and I got accepted, which was really kind.
Wow.
And what
And
I
I've
love
and
about,
I've seen those. They look absolutely beautiful.
oh, thanks. They are, in my opinion, my little marketing ninjas. So I don't
Mm.
actually make a huge margin from them, particularly if they're
But they're like the
bought.
coffee table piece. They spread the
Yeah,
word.
exactly.
Mm.
And on the back's my little bio spiel and my website link and all that kind of thing. But of course, they're flying all over the world. They're
Of
going off into
course.
people's houses.
Clever you.
So yeah, so that worked really well. And and then as I've mentioned already, the commercial project where I did it for the Maldives resort of Ifuru, which was just quite incredible. So
Mm.
I have got a lot of things in the air as far as, people are saying, I think your work would lend itself really well to fabrics and
How
textile
long have you been
cushions.
going? Remind me again, Anna. What period of
I,
time have you got this to this level?
I started in September 2022.
Yeah, wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, 18
Less than
months.
2 years. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
amazing.
Um, and really, I think the focus now for me is, yes, I can do some product diversification, but the model, I suppose, is almost 5 tiers of it. There will always be the art creation at the very top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be manifesting in exhibitions like the Ibiza one and California, as I was saying. And then there'll be always commissions, which I love doing for people's homes to, fit exactly the size and etc. that they want. Then there is the print. So then the print is really the monetization opportunity in terms of selling them to, I found my main customer is either a renovating mum who needs to
Mm.
watch the overall budget, so but wants to obviously breathe fresh, good juju into their new room. So they'll
Mm.
particularly buy a print, or it's an empty nester who's totally over seeing the same stuff on their walls for 30 years. They're either moved to a new location. So being able to target those women through Meta really with an advertising spend is really the e-commerce backbone, I
Mm.
suppose, that I'm now going to focus my
Invest in.
energy and
Mm.
cash
And
flow
is this
into.
business plan on paper or is it in your head?
It's in a notebook. Because I am visual, so it's a diagram, which if I have to, quickly turn it into,
There's no soft copy. It's hard copy. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
I can
Okay.
whiz up a PowerPoint. I've done that for a few years.
I think so.
Um, So, and then there's, yeah, like the cards and the products that I can then create and create a full margin from, I suppose, retail margin. And then there's licensing. So then there could
Yeah,
be
that's a good angle for
people,
you.
yeah, that want to put it on, I had someone approach me about their cosmetic um, eyeshadow palette. I didn't quite know what an eyeshadow palette was,
Oh,
but
come to
it's
my bathroom. I'll show you many eyeshadow palettes. They're. I'm like a kid in a candy shop when it comes to eyeshadow palettes. It's my absolute Achilles heel.
well, should there be
FYI.
an Analo art cover one, I'll let you know. But it
Mm,
was probably because my art has an Australian native art theme in it as well, from the plants and seed pods and things that I put there. So particularly when a brand has Australian botanicals in mind, my stuff kind of fits that.
mm.
So yeah, just working through some of those
I can see
opportunities at the
that as
minute.
my mind is spinning as to the allocation of brand synergistic connections, and skin and wellness is absolutely got a place for NLO art.
Yeah, I think so. And then obviously going full
Mm,
circle to what my first retail job was that you kindly got me in homewares.
mm,
That's definitely
mm.
got legs
Yeah,
in it
that's
as
got
well. I've
legs.
I've already got people saying, "Will you do tea towels, cushions, blah blah?" And I'm like, just give us a minute, and I'll
Mm.
just organize myself."
So that's a segue. Let's
Yeah,
look at what success looks like in 5 to 10 years. What does Anna Lowe art? Is that what you're calling it? You're calling it your own
yeah,
brand name? Yeah,
yes, and I
yeah.
did debate that, but I've realized that it's actually me that's the differentiator in my
Mm,
brand, I suppose,
mm. Well, you are the brand.
because yeah, and that's not a comfortable thing because you've got to be able to,
Get out front.
hustle and, like I'm doing now, chat, chat,
Mm,
chat, blah, blah, blah.
mm.
But that is the reality of it. And when I look at other, take Ken Doan as
Yeah,
inspiration,
of course.
he's just, in his fifth decade of just
Mm.
being the king of
You're a
Australian
natural communicator.
contemporary
You'll do
art.
very well with being the face of the brand.
Thank you. So success, I think, would be that the business model, just to sound really businessy for a second, is self-sustaining in its momentum, in that I, aren't I'm not contorting my work into uncomfortable spaces that I shouldn't go to because I'm just trying to chase some cash. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Don't want to
Yep.
say yes to the wrong things. I want to really stay true to what I think feels right for the brand.
Hmm.
And that the e-com, as we know, if you keep feeding the meta beast, and however long that will last, and it could be a new platform entirely by that stage, but
Mm.
that I have created a business that, as Simon said, well, why can't we just go get the product from overseas and retire on that? That I have
You made the
basically set
product.
up the second half of my career will then enable me to, yeah, retire on it.
Mm. Can I
I,
ask the commercial question? Are you
mm,
profitable yet?
I broke even in the first year, which
Oh,
I
wow.
was
Which
really
is
happy.
unheard of. Mm.
Yeah, when I finally did my tax, I was like, oh,
Mm.
look at that. So
Mm.
I couldn't believe that. I am cash positive at the minute, but I am about to do quite a bit of investment in advertising, which I don't know what that ROI will be as yet. So it's probably
Yeah.
a topic for, follow-up pod in
Mm.
in
But
five years.
you've got some skills from your corporate world to draw on to reference anyway.
Yeah.
So what do you love the most about what you're doing, Anna?
Well, it's kind of combined several worlds of passions that I didn't really realize. I've always loved homewares, that kind of, design aesthetic stuff. I've always loved art itself.
Mm.
Um, I can't help myself with kind of business thinking. I have desperately tried to turn it
You've
off, but
grown up in it as well.
yeah, and I love it when someone says to me, "Oh, I'm just starting this thing. Can we have a coffee and
Mm.
just kind of have a little brainstorm?" I really love it. I love quickly scribbling out a, one page kind of plan from either them
Ah,
or myself.
you've got form. You like these hard copy one page plans.
Yes. Here's one I prepared earlier, actually. Um,
If
so,
somebody's listening to the podcast and not watching it on YouTube,
oh
Anna's
yeah,
just held up her one page business plan, which is truly a doodle.
scribbly. Nothing wrong with doodles.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so what I love, and then it's actually this kind of returning to the challenge of it's a lovely hobby, darling. I I like the challenge of it.
Yeah.
It's so Wild West unknown for me that it's literally like, all right, let's put on your big
That in
cowgirl boots
itself has lit a
and
fire.
yeah, and
Mm.
let's just see what happens. And
Yeah.
there's so many days, Di, I have no idea where I'm going to get the answer or how I'm going to pull it off logistically or whatever. And it's just like, I'll go find out.
Yeah. Are you
Yeah.
loving it more than anything you've ever done?
Oh, so far, I mean, I've had some wonderful highlights. Don't get me
Mm.
wrong. I really did, I loved my time at Woolworths. Woolworths is a brand in Australia that gets quite a bit of debate around it, but I think it's
Mm.
actually full of fantastic people and they do, amazing things. And my time there was at a really interesting time. And again, it was a challenging time. So it was the sense of surviving and thriving in a really difficult
Mm.
context that I'm very proud of.
Yep.
I loved the campaign for real beauty that I worked on way back when for Dove when I was in London. That was a real highlight. So I'm
Mm.
very proud of all those things, but I can almost surrender to what I'm doing now because I've ticked all those boxes,
Mm.
as I said before. So it's kind of enabling me to feel more in the present than I ever have been. And the
Mm.
actual sensation of painting, I cannot even describe it. It is the most zen thing because or in the style I do, it's kind of like piecing together a jigsaw puzzle in a way. And I
Mm.
might have a podcast on called The Power of Women, say in the background, boom, boom, or, tunes or whatever. But I have stumbled upon a very meditative thing, which in turn has made me really happy.
Become your mindfulness. Mm.
Yeah. And quite often my kids, I can hear them upstairs going, "Where's mummy?" And I'm like downstairs going, "I'm downstairs."
So, Anna, if you had any tips for somebody who's, looking to take that leap of faith, leave behind their day job and pursue their passion, what would be your quick thumbnail for taking that leap of faith?
It's a really good question. As I say, when I do chat with people or when I have listened to other people's stories, you often hear about, I've got my day job and I've got my side hustle.
Mm.
And then there's this kind of sense of parallel worlds. And then if you've got a third track called mum life or caring for your parents, and you basically
Mm.
start melting.
Yep.
So I reckon the
We
key
spread
thing is,
ourselves thin sometimes.
yes, I think the key there, and I do have this in a notebook somewhere, is writing down the criteria as to what it would equal for the side hustle to become the main game so that you are permanently keeping that criteria in your head when you're making
Mm.
decisions about, doing an extra favor at work or, you know, saying yes to a project that either keeps you to that course or not. I think,
Hmm.
as you say, we're all very, typically talented at triple or quadruple or beyond tasking, but I think you've got to really decide what's the day going to look like when I decide to flick the switches over
Mm. And I
to
relate
renew.
to that very much because that's
Yeah,
exactly what I'm doing from 30 years in the corporate sphere to embarking on an unknown in the world of broadcasting and media and production. So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
and like you, it's
exactly.
bringing together left and right brain and stretching the metal. Mm.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Anna, a couple of my Power of Women go-to questions to close, if I may. What's a
Yes.
phrase that defines you?
I actually got a bit prepared for this one because I thought you
Did
might
you?
ask it.
Ah.
But it's actually a phrase that has taken me by surprise because it's actually my school motto, which is
Mm.
factus non verbis. And
Latin.
that means in Latin, it's what you do, not what you say. And
Yeah.
I was laughing about this with my friends and my sister's friends, the fact that we all wore it on our blazers for years
Mm.
and ignored it. But it's actually now as
Mm. You
women,
live by it.
yeah. And when
I've got
you might,
goosebumps now that you've said that. It's just gone up my arm. Oof.
yeah. And it's such a shorthand now, particularly for that group of women when we talk, if we're venting about, our husbands or work or whatever, or a boss or whatever. And you just go, factus non verbis, man. It's just, and yeah, I think even when I'm a granny, I think I'll be still whizzing that one on my grandkids, hopefully.
There you go. And anything that you haven't put on your bio yet that you'd like to?
I do like this idea of breaking the myth of struggling artist for people. I would like to stay completely focused on getting my new world, properly established, but I can definitely see developing some kind of service offering, I suppose, that would help people that may be purely right-brained to have a bit more left brain, but probably because I can speak a bit of right brain and hopefully have got the cred on the ground from over the next, as you say, 5 to 10 years, that I
Mm.
could then be of genuine service. I've kind of looked around for board roles for supporting women in creative circles, and those kind of board roles would interest me, but
Mm.
it would have to be for the right organization and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Otherwise, it's a bit of a white piece of, or boom, boom, white canvas, I suppose.
White canvas, soon to be coloured in by
That's
Anna.
so cheesy.